and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Bushester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. The scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about this author. His name, David Pitman. His book, The Expectations of Honor. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, David. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Good morning, Dr. Angela. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
I am so happy that you made the call. I can't wait to talk to you about your book. Now, as we do here on my show, I love to give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps one or two people out there that are unfamiliar with you or with your work. So my first question is, what makes David Pitman David Pitman?
Well, first of all, it's my parents. I had the best parents in the history of the world, and they were God-fearing parents who loved their kids and loved each other first and foremost for their kids. And because of that, they translated that love to each of their kids in an expectation of what we kids should see in the male or female spouse of our future. And that's really what's set me up as being the type of man I am today and what I look forward to talking with you about, Dr. Angela.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you simply find that that was just the next thing along your life path?
Actually, it's not something I ever fancied myself to be, Dr. Angela. I never was a good writer in my mind. I was challenged in school with getting good grades, and I had to work really hard to get grades. But I did finish college with a lot of hard work, and then it was just one of those things where it was the next step in life to write a book about this topic.
I can definitely understand that. So many of the guests who have been on say, nope, never thought in a million years that I would be an author, but so glad that that has become something that they do, that they've been able to do in their lives. Now, the title of your book,
Absolutely.
Expectations of Honor. How did you come about your title? Did it come to you first? Did it develop out of your writings? How did you select those words to entitle the book?
It was actually, it developed out of my writing, and it was actually my publisher who came up with those specific name. I was trying to come up with an idea, but they really had a good concept in what I was trying to do. So they were the ones that came up with the name, The Expectations of Honor. And then they also gave the subtitle, A Young Man's and Young Woman's Guide to a Lifetime of Character. So I thank my publisher for that.
Well, that is what we pay them the big bucks for. So that is great that they were able to come up with such an awesome title. And I like how it stands out just enough to pique your interest when you, back in the regular world, when we used to be able to just kind of scan books as they were up on the bookshelves. So I love it. I love it. Now, did you have a particular inspiration as far as writing in the field of honor, or talking about what it means to respect someone or something?
Well, as I stated in the earlier thought, it was definitely my mother and dad, but it was my mother in particular. I saw what Dad did to honor my mother every day in the 35 years that I knew them in life. And then my mother, as I started getting into my teen years, would start talking to me about respecting a woman or honoring a woman and cherishing her, and some of the ways we can do that on a daily basis. Whether it's in our work environment, whether it's in our home with our sisters and our female relatives, whether it's out in the environment when we're playing. just any area of life when we're dealing in men-woman relationships as a son or a future man in this world.
Mm-hmm. Now, why is the topic of teaching today's young men and women about relationships important to you? Do you find that more attention needs to be paid to that, and that we've kind of lost something along the generations, or do you feel that it's just a part of your call to purpose?
Well, it is certainly a part of my calling, but I believe that you touched on it right there in your question, that it is something we have lost. A great deal of our society and the world as a whole, I think we've lost that. Growing up in college, when I went to college, growing up in that family I grew up with, I was distressed as a young college kid watching the way the young men and the young women interacted with each other, the perception I had of young men just not even thinking about how to honor a girl, honor a woman, honor the girls in the dorm in their classes. And I also saw the girls not setting an expectation of how they think they should be treated honorably. So that's really where the basis came from for my wanting to address this topic.
And I have to agree with you. I think that in generations past, that was something that was simply passed on. It was something that mothers taught to their daughters and something that fathers taught to their sons. And due to I'm going to say the informal status of society today, we are starting to lose some of those customs or norms or very important parts, attributes of what it is to be an adult in the world today. I have to agree with you on that. Now, for someone who says, I love what you're saying, I want to get a copy of David's book, how do you suggest that the reader really takes in the information? Should they read it from cover to cover, or can they simply open it up and start reading at chapter next?
Well, it's not a long book. And, when I was writing this book, God said, you don't need to write 300 pages to tell about honor and respect and chivalry and, love. You don't need to do that. You just need something short and sweet. So, a person can read this book. If they're a good reader, they'll probably be able to read this book in 15 minutes. But the information within the book is something that can be referenced throughout a lifetime, regardless of age. Dr. Angela, I believe that age is not a restriction, even though my book title suggests young men and young women. I believe that men and women, boys and girls of all ages, can learn from this book, from this thought of chivalry and honor.
Absolutely. And that is my next question for you. Regarding who is the ideal reader, did you write this so that our, not just our young adults, but perhaps our teenagers, like high school age, would be able to consume the information as well?
Oh, most absolutely that's the case. I mean, I wasn't specifically looking towards people in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, children of that age. I was looking into the teen years as well, but certainly into the 20s, because those are the formative years of our lives. So even though you're in college and you're supposedly an adult, you're still in the learning years, I believe, of how to treat young men and young women in your life. And here's a good example, Dr. Angela. That's the first time for most kids getting away from home and actually being able to put into practice what hopefully their parents taught them about interpersonal relationship with the opposite sex. So when they go off to college, they're in a dorm room setting, in a classroom setting, all these arenas. Hopefully, they'll be able to take what they've learned into those arenas and start applying them, and then eventually become adults of honor, respect, and character.
Oh, I love that answer. Now, you kind of touched on this before, and I really want to give you a little bit more time to expound on that answer, and that is women and girls missing this conversation when it talks about what honor looks like, and how do you not only honor yourself, but how do you expect for others to honor you as well? Can you expound on that just a little bit more? How do you address that in the book?
Yeah, Dr. Angela, what I'm really trying to get at is that I believe that girls and women, they should learn at a young age how to set relationship expectations with all boys and all men throughout their lives. And learning at a young age in particular is the best way to set that stage for being able to do that as they go throughout their life. In fact, so I use a Bible verse, Proverbs 11, number 16 through 17, verses 16 through 17 says, "A gracious woman gets honor, and violent men get riches. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself in a selfish manner." And I chose that verse because I believe that women who really look at the side of a man, treating them with honor, are going to know how to determine which men they should have in their lives, which men they should not have in their lives. And they should make a choice, a conscious choice, that this man is good for me and this man is not. And within that, Dr. Angela, they also have a chance to hopefully teach a man he's not very honoring if he's open to learning how to respect her and maybe carry that on to other women in his life. So she can actually be a teacher that benefits a man in his life.
Oh, I love that answer. And I'm so glad that you gave us something to chew on. So it's time for us to go to break. But before we do, David, could you please remind everyone, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Well, okay, my name is David Pitman. I live in Arvada, Colorado, and the title of my book is The Expectations of Honor, A Young Man and Young Woman's Guide to a Lifetime of Character. And the book is available most prominently on barnesandnoble.com, and you can check with any retailer and give them that title to get it for you. And you can best keep in touch with me at my email address, awalkforjesus and ncsu1@gmail.com.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You know what I like to do on this show. I want to enlighten you, inspire you, and empower you. So today we have on David Pitman, and the title of his book is The Expectations of Honor. I know that is a really great title for a book. My next question for you, David, is this time it's the guy's turn. So with the boys and men, why, or what, do you think is missing when it comes to their conversations about honoring the women or the girls that are in their lives?
Well, I think a lot of what boys and men are missing is the way men are created. I think a lot of what they're missing is they are not being taught how to treat and honor a woman. And since girls, if they're not being taught the same thing, girls in their weakness can actually try to use a man's weakness to be drawn to the girl. So what I'm trying to say there, as an example, I'll use 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. And it says, "Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. And a part of that, the weaker vessel, I want to address that. In today's world, when you say weaker vessel and apply it to the woman, people might get confused and think women are weaker than men in every aspect. Well, that's certainly not true. Women certainly have strengths that men don't have in the areas of compassion, love, caring, and just keeping a home in the way men can't. And men also have strengths that women don't have. And I also like to use Proverbs 7, verses 6 through 7. And it's in Proverbs 7, what a father is doing is warning his son about an adulteress. An adulteress being a girl or a woman who does not have the proper training or expectations of what the man is looking for. So in Proverbs 6, it says, "For at the window of my house I have looked out through my lattice, and I have seen among the simple, I have perceived among the youths a young man lacking sense." And that is portraying a woman finding a man who's weak in his understanding of how he should treat a woman and what a woman's expectations are of him to be treated. So when you have that combination, Dr. Angela, I believe that you've got a train wreck waiting to happen, which is where our society is today and the world in general when it comes to man and woman, boy and girl relationships. It is a total train wreck because people have fallen asleep on their expectations of how we should treat each other in opposite sex relationships.
Oh, that was such a wonderful answer. So not only did you just, give opinions, but you gave the scripture to help give us an example to help paint that picture and wrap it back around to faith. And I think that's so important because we do turn to scripture or we should turn to scripture to our instructions, our, guiding light to help us know what we should do or what we shouldn't do as well. So thank you for that awesome answer. I love that. Now, for so many people, they're saying, this is really kind of hitting home for me. My parents got divorced perhaps when I was a little kid, or others maybe say, well, one parent passed away and the other parent didn't get married for quite some time. So I didn't have that opportunity to see that interaction. And I love that you're trying to give that great foundation. But for the person that needs the picture to be painted a little bit more vividly for them, can you give us some examples of ways a young man can honor a young woman that can be a part of their character for a lifetime?
Yeah, Dr. Angela, and the beauty of what God has done through my book is by making it short so you get into those nuts and bolts really quickly. So, for example, one of the first things my mother did was, I remember when I was probably in 10th grade, she said, "Okay, David, let's have you open my car door so I can step in." And then subsequently, when we got on the other end of the journey, she said, "Now, David, climb out of the car, walk around and open my door so I can climb out." She proceeded to say, "This is what you should do for every woman you meet, especially a woman you are looking at possibly making a future life with together forever." So that would be one example. Another example would be holding a woman's coat open so she can easily slip it on. Everybody knows, Dr. Angela, how hard it is to put a coat on, reaching our arms behind, swinging the other arm around. And if a woman is in a dress, oh my gosh, that makes it even, with long flowing sleeves, that makes it even more difficult. So as a man, we can really help show honor by holding her coat, making it easier. And another good example would be, and I remember Mother doing this in a restaurant to me once. So as a teenage boy, that was kind of uncomfortable, but Dad fully agreed. And Mother said, okay, David, go ahead and pull out the chair so I can sit down and slide under. And so I did that in this public place, and oh boy, is that hard as a teenage boy. But now as I learned, Dr. Angelo, what happens is it's great, because when you date a woman or when you go out with a woman as a boy, she may have on a long dress again. And if she's getting that chair, trying to get underneath that table with the dress kind of down by her ankles and sliding in, it could get caught. It's just uncomfortable and difficult. And so that is where we men can really help in that honoring side of things. And do I have a little bit more time to give a couple more examples, Dr. Angela?
Oh, yes, please, by all means.
Okay, well, this is one which I use a picture in the front of my book, Dr. Angela, which I really think tells a story of where boys and girls become selfish at a young age and they just don't realize it. And it's holding an umbrella for a woman so she doesn't get her makeup wet, her hair doesn't get wet and start running, and her clothes get wet. And this little picture in the front of the book is of two boys standing under an umbrella in their shorts. And here's this cute little girl, probably about 3, in her flowing pink dress, just getting poured on with rain. Her hair is all run down. And she's just got these tears coming out of her eyes, and the boys are just jovial and happy. And so this is one of those pictures that I think really paints where boys can honor a woman by helping her keep her beautiful look when they go out on a date, especially when weather may be inclement like that. And then another thing would be when you're out on a date, let's say the woman drops her napkin. Well, women, in the way they dress, oftentimes, it's not very dignified. Women don't necessarily feel comfortable suddenly reaching down with their dress kind of binding. Maybe there's a low cut or something. And so it's best for a man to just say, hold on, let me pick that up for you. Get up out of his seat, walk around, pick up the napkin, and give it back to her. So those are a couple more examples of things that boys can do, young men of any age can do to really show honor to the woman and women in their lives, especially in dating and marriage relationships.
Oh, I love it. And I'm sitting here nodding my head, and I'm sure listeners, there are a few of you as well that are nodding your head saying, yes, I remember seeing my father do that. Yes, I remember seeing my grandfather do that. And yes, I am teaching my sons to do that as well, because you're right. It is the little things. Those things are so honoring, and it does make you feel special. It makes you feel loved and appreciated. And in return, you want to give or extend that same type of love and appreciation and honor to that young man or to that man that is in your life, be it that it's your son or your husband or your father for that matter. So I love it. You are so right. And I'm happy that you're talking about this today, because unfortunately I have heard some of our young ladies say, I'm capable. I'm able. I don't need a man to open the door for me. I'm not some, slow mover, or it's not too heavy for me to reach down and pick something up for myself. And I don't think that they understand that it is an honor to do those things for the woman that you love. That it is not saying that she's less than. So thank you so much for mentioning that.
It's my pleasure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, I gave an example in the book of a woman I interviewed in a coffee shop where she actually had just what you were describing right there. She says, "Oh, I can do everything for myself." And she said her first marriage relationship was based on that premise. Well, that marriage did not last. Well, her second now husband, she said when he arrived at the house the first time, he opened her car door and pulled out her chair, and she said she absolutely flipped her mind. She couldn't believe it. She's like, I've never done this before. She's like, I love this. This is great. I love this man. And here it is. They've been married however many years now, but it's something she never learned as a young woman that she should be expecting of this. So it was really fun to see that example to confirm what you were just saying.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And it makes all the difference in the world. And you gave some really great examples. I know that we're not, out and about in the world the way that we used to be necessarily, but especially in those times when we are more formally dressed or, it's a special occasion. You're right. Clothes can be a little restrictive. And thank you for mentioning the napkin, because how many times, unfortunately, have we seen a woman bend over, to pick something up, and you're like, oh my, and it's like, please hurry and get that, because you are concerned about her, you are worried about her just because of the look or the perception that you may be afraid that she may be giving to someone else because she wasn't thinking in that moment. So thank you for that.
Exactly. Exactly. You are so correct.
And it really is, so important. I know there's someone out there going, oh my goodness, this sounds so old fashioned, and, none of that matters, but it really and truly does. So I think that this is a great time, especially for us to back up, which is where I want to ask you kind of the next question for you is what if you weren't taught to do that? And now you're hearing it here on the radio show, or they've read it in your book. How do you start over? Like, how do you teach someone how to do this? Like, again, if they were never exposed to this as a young person.
Well, I think, Dr. Angela, what we need to do is we need to help every young man and young woman know that this is how God created us. You as a woman were created to expect a man to treat you this way, and young man, you were created to be expected to treat a woman in a certain way so that when you get the honor or the respect you desire and the love you desire, that's because you treated her properly from the beginning. So if we can help each of them know that God created the man one way with expectations and help the young woman know that God created her in a way of expectations, then we can merge those two emotional desires and needs together. So I don't believe it's ever too late to start, Dr. Angela. I don't believe at all it's ever too late. If you're an adult that's in his 30s or 40s hearing this for the first time, it's never too late to say, oh my gosh, I have never experienced this. I've never thought of this. I have missed this. I can start, as uncomfortable as it might be, with my wife today or the woman I'm dating. And I can change my perception now of how I treat her and start doing some of these things and seeing how her emotional state changes and see if a smile comes to her face. And same with the woman. It's like, okay, I can start right now setting the expectations of the man that you don't treat me in certain ways. You treat me with honor. You treat me with, cherish me as the woman God made me to be. And I don't expect anything less than that. So I don't believe there is any age that can't learn or not start learning, or what I mean to say is that can start learning at any age this topic.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you on that, because I think in our lives in general, every day is an opportunity to learn something new. No matter how small or insignificant you may think it is in that moment, it could have a profound effect on you later in life. And I think this is one of those things that really and truly can change your perspective and can be an eye-opening moment for you. And you'll be like that lady that you gave the example of. It's like, wow, I didn't realize this is something that I wanted, or something that I love that. Now, outside of today's youth, of the young people in the world today, who do you believe is the biggest beneficiary of this awakening teaching that you're sharing with us today when it comes to honor and respect?
Well, I think the biggest beneficiary is family life in general. From this day forward, Dr. Angela, what I mean by that is that if the father treats the mother in a way of honoring and cherishing her every day in their relationship, even if it's not perfect, but he makes an attempt, that sets the table for his daughters to see, oh, this is what I can expect a man out in this world. This is what I should expect a man out in this world to treat me in every aspect of our interpersonal connection. And then at the same time, the young man sees his dad treating his mom in this way. He's like, oh, this is how I should treat every woman I meet in my life continuum. So that as children learn this, even by just example of their father or mother, they can start practicing it, carry it throughout their life, teach it to the next generation. And the more kids we can teach at a young age now, the more kids carry this through the next generation. And then we just start to build this wave of honor, respect, love, cherishing into our society for years to come. And that's what I really want to see. And that's why I was compelled to write this book, why I answered God's call on this.
I love it. I am so glad that you follow through with the call that was given to you, because I believe that it is definitely something that is needed. One of the things that I loved most, and I'm sure many of our listeners can have that moment, is at your debutante ball. I thought that was just one of the most wonderful things up until that point, of course. My wedding and all those other things were great too. But up until that point, that was like the bee's knees. And to see all of these teachings, all of these things that you're reminding us to do, all of that was in play at that moment. No one had to remind the other person to, like you said, to remove that chair, to help slide that chair under. No one had to remind you of how to speak to one another, how to be gracious and courteous, and how to have honor and reverence for that other person. It was just a beautiful thing. And as you were talking, it just reminds us of so many times we think that we don't have to do those things anymore, that those things aren't important, but how important they really and truly are. And what a great way to start off a new year, or to refresh wherever we are in the year, and you hear this, to refresh this and say, I think I'm going to try to do this. I haven't done it before. Why not start doing it now? David Pitman, thank you for coming on and reminding us of who we should be. Thank you again for being on the show. But before I let you go, can you please remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
It is The Expectations of Honor, a young man's and young woman's guide to a lifetime of character. And it's available at barnesandnoble.com and other retailers. And you can be in touch with me at awalkforjesus.ncsu1@gmail.com.
Thank you again, David, for being a guest on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you very much, Dr. Angela. It's been a pleasure to spend this time with you. And thank you again for your time and taking an interest in this topic. Let's go change lives for the world.
Absolutely. I love it. And listeners, we hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you today. I believe that we have. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember, you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.